I need to start with a confession. You hear an introduction like that, and you can think, I bet asking questions just comes naturally to Bob. I wish it did. What comes naturally to Bob is telling. And my confession is that for most of my Cru career, looking back, I was a benevolent dictator. Because you see, my only paradigm of leadership was I thought the job of a leader was to figure out what needed to be done. And then I did say benevolent. I grew up in a home where I was taught to say please and thank you. So if you've been on my team, I don't think I ever would have said, hey, Mark, go do this. It'd been more like, hey, Mark, here's what we're working on. It'd really be great if you could please do this. But it was still do this. And when Mark did it, I would have said, thank you. And at a staff meeting, in fact, Mark, stand up. You all need to hear what Mark did. And I don't want to suggest we got nothing done, but I am confessing my only paradigm of leadership was thinking the job of a leader was to figure out what needed to be done and then kindly ask the staff to do it. Now, for me, that changed in 2006 when I discovered the first edition of the book, Leading with Questions, by Dr. Michael McCourt, professor at George Washington University. That book was filled with stories of leaders, literally from around the globe, not just the U.S., and the questions they were asking. And as I read that book, I had only one question. Why hasn't anyone ever shared this paradigm with me before? I was an immediate convert. I was already on the U.S. leadership development team. I began to teach out of it. And so that's the story of how Leading with Questions began. Dale Carnegie said, an effective leader will ask questions instead of giving direct orders. King Solomon said, a fool finds no pleasure in understanding, but delights in sharing his own opinions. Well, many times speakers tell you, please turn off your cell phones, put them away. That's not me. Right now, I need you all to grab your cell phones, get them out. You see my number on the screen, so type in my number where you text, and then send me your first name and hit send. That will let me know on future questions who's sending them. So as fast as you can, 214-213-2179. First name, hit send. Okay, my phone is buzzing. Here's your first question. In leading, what are the advantages to telling? This is not a trick question. In leading, there are times we need to tell. And if you all could text just one advantage to telling. And I'll wait to see the first answers on advantages to telling. Speed, yes. Daniel, everyone knowing the common goal, yes. Abby, quick response that can lead to solutions, yes. Clarity by Dave. Takes less time, it's quicker. Control. These are absolutely fabulous. And Conda just says, great to see you, Bob. Where's Conda? Great to see you. I'm from South Dakota. She's from South Dakota, so we love connecting. Oh, I like this next one. Chuck says, the advantage of telling is my way. Well, keep sending those, and I'm capturing all of these, and I appreciate them. But here's the next question. In leading, what are the advantages to asking questions? Again, if you could text one advantage of asking a question when you're leading. Lee says new ideas. John says engage others. Eric says people support a world they help create. That is fabulous. John, everyone buys in, has ownership. Team engagement. Scott says that. Ed, possible new ideas and greater buy-in. Brian, give sight. I lost that one. Chandler, they set the direction. Insight, evaluate beginning thoughts. Wow. I have another question. It's not on the screen, but you can answer just A or B. In leading, which is better? A, telling, or B, asking? A, telling, B, asking. We'll see what the answers are. Okay, I'm seeing B, 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 B. And let me look here. B, 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 B. There's one, though. Ooh, I keep clicking on the wrong one here. Okay. Where's Ed? Probably more than one Ed. Ed says yes. That was a trick question, but I have another question for you. When you're flying, which wing's more important? Are you getting on any plane that only has one wing? No. And the answer of yes, and others typed in, it depends. Absolutely true. Depending on the situation, there are times when you lead you need to tell. There are times, depending on the situation, that it'd be best to ask. Both are needed. But truth be known, a whole lot of us are a lot more practiced at telling than we are asking. If you can imagine just for a moment your right arm to be your telling arm, I'm guessing most of us, it is well developed. If you can imagine just for a moment your left arm to be your asking arm, I'm guessing most of us would say, no, it doesn't have equal strength to the telling arm. So today we're going to focus on strengthening the asking arm, not because you don't need telling, but because you're good to go on telling. What we want is to have equal strength. So, I need to ask somebody a question. Lisa, will you come on up here? Mark's going to hand you a mic.
Okay. Up there?
Yeah, up there, yes. Thank you.
Okay.
Lisa,
Yes.
what did you have for dinner last night?
Tacos. Tacos.
Okay, where'd you get those?
Home. Airbnb.
Fabulous, you made them.
We made them.
Why didn't you invite me over?
Didn't have your number yet.
Okay, okay. Here's the next question.
Okay.
Have you learned the art of looking like you're paying attention when somebody is talking on and on and on, when in
Yes.
fact your mind may actually be elsewhere?
Yes.
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 Is anybody in here not learned that art? We've all learned that art. Lisa, let's just say I'd already lost you.
Okay.
Where did your full attention come to the moment I said, Lisa, can I ask you a question?
My heart started pounding. That's it.
Full attention to me.
Full attention. Yeah.
Waiting.
Name.
Yeah, what would the question be?
What do you mean?
You were waiting. What would the question be that I was going to ask you?
I have no idea.
No, you didn't, but I'm saying you were waiting to hear.
Right. Right.
Yeah, fully focused.
Yes. Right.
And it wasn't a difficult question, and you answered rather quickly. I use this all the time, but it took just a microsecond to think, what did I have for dinner last night?
Yes.
Sometimes people take 2 or 3 seconds to sort through to find out. And then you answered. Now, had I asked you a question that was more complicated, requiring an opinion, even as you begin to speak, you would have been reading my face to see, was I understanding? Was I confused? Was I even upset?
Right.
And instinctively, you would edit what you continued to speak as you answered. Kind of the final question. If you want to access the brain power of another person, what do you have to do?
Ask a question.
Ask them a question.
Yeah.
And what's fascinating to me is from the time you say, can I ask you a question, until they're done answering, 100% of the computing power of their brain is focused on hearing, understanding, and responding to your question.
Wow.
Now, there's one other interesting thing. I don't have a slide for this, but research shows that when we start talking, and I don't mean up here speaking, coffee with a friend, one-on-one, and we start talking,
Yes.
the light is green. We have their attention for about 1 to 3 minutes. If we keep talking without them responding in any way, 3 to 5, the light is turning yellow. Some of them are looking like they're with you, but they've left. If you speak more than 5 minutes without them responding, you ought to just know the light is red. if you ask a question at some point, they say, wait, what? Because they've left you. So how do you get them back?
Ask them another question.
You got it. Thank you. I'm fascinated by simple things, but I am fascinated that you can access and get 100% of the computing power of somebody else's brain when you ask them a question. A leader who leads with questions is 10 times more effective than a leader who leads by telling. Jeff, can I ask you to come up here? Mark is going to hand you a mic. And Jeff, as you come up, I've got several questions for you. The first question, go with me, because I'm going somewhere with this. And it's kind of a silly question, but this is your team.
Yes.
They're all in a big canoe. As you can see, everyone's got an oar. You're the leader of this team.
Right.
How many of them do you want to have row with you?
I think all of them.
All of them. I told you it was a silly question, but I'm going somewhere. This next slide, your same team.
Yep.
But now they're not in a canoe, they're gathered around the conference table. As you see, there's an opportunity on the table. Now listen carefully. If you're a leader like I used to be, the benevolent dictator, and you think it's your job to figure out how to take advantage of the opportunity, and then you're going to tell them what to do, how many mental oars are in the water?
Probably none of those.
Only one.
Mine.
Yours.
Yeah, right.
But if you're a leader who leads with questions, so you say, gang, here's this opportunity, and looking around the table, you say, what do you all think we might do? Now how many mental oars?
Well, I think they're all in the water, and some are probably pretty nervous.
Okay. As you hear from your whole team, what are the odds that one of them might have an idea better than you?
They're pretty good. And hopefully they're around the table because they usually do have a better idea than I do.
You've hired good people. And it's not a guarantee, but hearing 10 different ideas, there's a probability. Is there a Sarah in here today? There's Sarah right over there. She's on your team. And Sarah shares an idea, Jeff, and you think, wow, that is good.
Yep.
So you say, Sarah, love your idea. Without coming up here, how's that make you feel, Sarah? Good. Jeff next said, in fact, Sarah, would you be willing to lead our team in executing on your idea? How hard is she going to work?
It's going to work hard.
Whose idea is she executing?
Her idea.
Yeah. And so there is some emotional intelligence, understanding, even, Jeff, if you thought your idea is a tad better, but you think, but if I let Sarah go with her idea, she's going to own it.
Yep.
She's going to do everything she can. And in fact, in a team building situation, you got George, you got Pat, you got Mary all adding. And together they own it. Mm-hmm. And thanks, Jeff. This is just some of the reason that a leader who leads with questions can be so much more effective. They're hearing more ideas, and they're empowering their staff to go with stuff the staff owns rather than just follows your direction.
You're right.
Thanks.
I can't pass this up.
Okay.
Tell me more.
Thank you. We're going to continue. Thank you, Jeff. Who here would like to learn to lead with questions in 30 seconds? Okay. Keep those hands up. Got it. Right there in the blue. Right there. You. Yeah. Come on up. We're going to see if this is possible. Okay.
Somebody take a picture. I'm going to send it to my supporters. Make them think I'm leading this.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding. Sorry, I had to throw a joke.
Do you know why I picked you, Trevor?
My hand was up.
Your hand was up. That's true. I believe that Trevor has a photographic memory. And Trevor's only going to have to hear my 4 favorite questions once. He'll instantly have them memorized, and then he'll be able to lead with questions. And so I've got a second hand here. The clock starts when I say my first favorite question. I'm going to share all 4. I'm going to say, do you have them memorized? You will. Upon you sharing them all 4 successfully, the clock ends. So you ready?
Yes.
Here we go. My first favorite question is, what do you think? Second, what else? Third, what else? Fourth, what else? Do you have them memorized?
What do you think? What else? What else? What else?
Oh my goodness. A new world record. Just stay there. A new world record, 11 seconds. Now, some of you are looking just a little skeptical, like, Bob, you can't ask somebody, what do you think? What else? What else? What else? And I say, of course not, Trevor, not in that rapid fashion. Now, first thing, Trevor, is there'd be a topic. You'd be saying, what do you think we ought to do about? And when you ask a question, you usually get an answer. Now, before I understood this, Trevor, ask a question, get an answer, cycle complete, move on. Here's what I didn't understand. Research shows is that when we're asked to give an opinion, input, again, not with thought, but instinctive, we roll out a safe answer. We're testing the waters. So, Trevor, if I asked you, hey, what do you think about something? And you give me that first answer, and I say, well, Trevor, that's dumb. Everyone knows that. You're sorry you answered. Next time I'll get nothing. But I say, wow, that's good, Trevor. What else? Well, you relax. Think, wow, Bob appreciates what I'm sharing, and you give me more. And even then, I don't move on. I say, Trevor, this is gold. I'm grabbing a pen. I've got to take some notes here. Please continue. What else? And what I've discovered is you actually get to Trevor or whoever you're asking's gold nugget with the third and fourth question. We all maybe have heard the story, I think it's proverbial, but the old gold miner who mined all his life looking for the gold vein. Never found it. He finally quits. Somebody came along later and discovered the old miner was within 6 inches of the gold vein when he quit. Well, Trevor, if you only ask the first question, what do you think, and move on, you're a bit like that gold miner. You got close, but it's the what else's that dig just a little deeper. Now let's go back to the question I asked is, who here would like to learn to lead with questions in 30 seconds? The reason I ask this is so often I sense from an audience that they'd like to learn to lead with questions, but they imagine they'll have to go get a master's degree in questionology. Like, nice idea, but I'll probably need to get that done. I mean, I'd like to be a brain surgeon, make the kind of money they make. But there isn't any course in 30 seconds for them. And if you've been a leader, in fact, Trevor, I'm a simple guy. If leading with questions was complicated, I couldn't do it. But what I love is if you've been a leader who only leads by telling, just with these 4 questions, your next staff meeting, one-on-one with a staff member, or with your team around the table, whatever the issue is, by just saying, hey, gang, what do you think? And listen, wow, thank you. What else? Hey, that's great. Let me take notes. What else? Just with this, that person can move from a leader who leads by telling to a leader who leads with questions. That's simple. One more question for you, Trevor. How have you felt whenever you've had a leader, somebody you report to, say, hey, Trevor, what do you think we ought to do here? How did that make you feel?
I feel seen and valued.
Yeah. Without that leader saying, I value you, I think you have a brain, I think you can contribute, just the act of asking and then listening communicated that. Well, Trevor, if that's how we feel when somebody we report to asks us, how will those who report to us or colleagues feel when we ask them?
Same way.
Same way. Thank you so much. Give Trevor a hand. Henry David Thoreau, I love this quote. I just love the way he put words together. The greatest compliment that was ever paid me was when one asked me what I thought and attended to my answer. 340 questions Jesus asked. This is one of my books, but notice it doesn't say authored by Bob. It's compiled by Bob. Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John are the authors. And if you add up in the NIV all the questions recorded, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, and the one question in Acts where Jesus asked Paul, why are you persecuting me? There's 340 questions. So why in the world did Jesus ask so many questions? Well, one day, a while back, I had a deep thought. This is a deep thought for Bob. It wouldn't be for most of you, but Trust me, for me it was a deep thought. And I thought, in the book, well, it started with this. Somebody who can write a complicated computer program, and that would not be me, with all the code, would we guess they would be the one who would best know how to make full use of that program? Well, of course, they designed it. And then I coupled that with first chapter of the Gospel of John. It says, and everything that was created by him. In other words, Jesus designed us, created us, wired us in an infinite way beyond our understanding. But the next thought was, might Jesus have leveraged how he designed us and how he communicated with us? And the answer for this farm boy was like, duh. And what were the two pillars of Jesus' communication? Stories and questions. And something fascinating about stories is when we hear a great story, it's sticky. Without writing it down, without saying, oh, I got to memorize this, we hear a story and we just remember it. Do you think Jesus knew that when he shared the story of the prodigal son that people would leave remembering? Again, like, duh. And then, did Jesus want to see lives changed? Well, of course. But did he know that it would be more effective to say, Mark, let me ask you, than to say, Mark, let me tell you? Because Mark, when he said, let me ask you, and you answered, whose idea did you think it was? Your idea, yeah. And so Jesus asked questions because he knew as they would answer, much more likelihood to actually own their answer and to create the change. Well, we all know we're not Jesus, but here's the good news. We can improve our communication ability by following his pattern, stories and questions. You tell stories, you ask questions, you are leveraging how he designed this whole thing to work. Cheryl Batchelder, former CEO of Popeye's Chicken, she's now on the board of Chick-fil-A. When she took over Popeye, shares were trading at $10 a share. 6 years later, when they sold to a Canadian firm, shares were at $60 a share. She wrote a book called Dare to Serve. For me, it's the best book on servant leadership I've ever read. In that book, though, she asked this question, how well do you know your staff? Do you know the 3 or 4 events of their lives that have shaped who they are today? Now, whenever I read a great question, hear a great question, I can hardly wait to find somebody to ask. And no sooner had I read this, and I'm on a Zoom coaching call with Neil Black, one of our staff, leadership development in Canada, Power to Change. I've known Neil since 2007. We're good friends. I have the privilege of being his coach. I thought I knew Neil's whole story. And so we get on this call, and I said, Neil, I've just read this great question. I'd love to ask. He said, Bob, you know I love great questions. What's the question? And I say, Neil, what would you say are the 3 to 4 events that most shaped who you are today? Now, I didn't expect to learn anything new. I just thought of all the things I know, it'd be interesting which ones he says are the top 3 or 4. Well, it turns out I was wrong. Neil says, Bob, have I ever shared with you that my birth father died when I was 9 months old? I said, no, Neil, you've never told me this. He said, well, Bob, I have no memory of the man. I was only 9 months old. He said, my mother later remarried, and the man who's really my stepfather is the man who in my heart is my dad, because he's the only dad I've ever known, and he's a great dad. But he said the story's been shared with me so many times. My grandparents, my aunts and uncles, my mother. In the final days of my birth father's life, he knew he was dying. He was in a big bed at home. And Neil said, and every day, I'm told, he would ask to hold me. And as he would hold me, he would pray over me and ask that God, the Heavenly Father, would be a father to his son that he knew he was not going to live to raise. Well, Neil began to have tears. Neil's tears caused me to have tears. And through his tears, Neil said, Bob, I believe the first event that marked my life were the prayers of my birth father, and that God honored those prayers, and as a result, I came to know Jesus. Well, a question, Neil's answer, I don't know, 3-4 minutes. And a relationship that was already good suddenly went much deeper. This has become one of my favorite questions. And the answers are always fascinating. I must share with you, the very first time I asked that question of Neil was the most emotional response I've ever received. But the answers are always fascinating. And right now, I actually want all of you to experience this question. Don't stand up yet and follow my orders explicitly. In a moment, I'm asking you all to stand up, put your hand in the air, and find somebody you didn't come with, and go stand by each other. But once you've spotted each other, put your hand down. So those that still have hands in the air are still looking, okay? So right now, everybody on their feet. And once you've all paired up, I will tell you what to do. But everybody on their feet, find that partner. And here's the instruction. You're going to have 4 minutes each, 8 minutes total. I have a countdown clock that'll be on the screen. But 4 minutes each to share with your new partner what you would say are the 3 to 4 events that most shaped who you are today. Now, you're really only going to have time to name the events, not the full stories. But I give you permission to say, oh, we got to connect. I got to hear the rest of that story. But go. Would it surprise you if I had a question for you? How many of you would say you actually now know more about this person? You just had this 8-minute, 4 minutes each conversation than some people you've known for 20 years. Wow, every hand. You know those people you've known for 20 years? How could you find out what are the 3 to 4 events that most shaped who they are today? Ask, yeah. If you read the promo for this seminar, I said, how would you like it if there was a way you could get others to ask you, how did you come to know Christ? Would you all like that? People asked you? Well, we frequently play ping pong with questions, don't we? Meaning, good morning, Sandy, how are you? And you'll say, yeah, how are you, Bob? And if we were at coffee and I said, I've got a question, what are some of your favorite places to eat? And you shared those and I asked more about it, but it's not a guarantee, but it's likely you might say, well, Bob, what are some of your favorite places to eat? So I get on an airplane, meet a new person, say, I have a question I love to ask people. And I say, what would you say are the 3 to 4 events that most shaped who you are today? And they answer, and I say, and tell me more about that, and we stay with it. Now, it's not a guarantee, but what's the probable question they're going to ask me? And for all of us who know Jesus, one of the events of those 3 or 4 that have shaped our lives was coming to know him. And so when we answer, we very organically have an opportunity to tell them about Jesus, but we're responding to their question. And so that is how you can get someone to ask you. They're not asking that directly, but indirectly when they say, well, tell me about you. What are the 3 to 4 events you get to share with them? What's the first thing required every time you ask a question? You got to listen. Ken Blanchard says, when I talk to people about the best boss they ever had, they always mention one quality: listening. James, be quick to listen, slow to speak. Proverbs, he who answers before listening, that is his folly and shame. Leading with questions requires listening. If you don't intend to listen, don't ask the question. 2 quick tips on how we can become a better listener, and I'm fighting time here. The first one is the best one. For years and years and years, my solution to becoming a better listener was, I just need to try harder. Is there anything in the Christian life we can do successfully by trying harder? No. But the funny thing is, when I witnessed, when I taught the scriptures, of course, I need to be filled with the Holy Spirit. And then over here, I'm trying to be a better listener by trying harder. And then somebody gave me the book, Do You Hear Me Now?, written by a Christian couple. Third, fourth chapter was the power of the Holy Spirit. And their message was the key to becoming a better listener is to appropriate the power of the Holy Spirit to give someone the gift of being listened to. As I read that, I laughed out loud, not at them, but at me, thinking I could become a better listener by trying harder. This is the best tip I have in this whole seminar, is to understand we need the power of the Holy Spirit to be a better listener. Second tip, who here would like to be a better listener in 8 seconds? That's even better than 30, isn't it? What sport has an 8-second clock? Bull riding, yes. Now, to a bull rider, how long is 8 seconds? Yeah, a half hour. Now, you can think, well, Bob, that's bull riding. What does it have to do with listening? This is interesting. Research shows that the average person, when they ask a question, only waits 2 or 3 seconds for an answer. If the other person doesn't answer in 2 or 3 seconds, that silence seems like an eternity, and we instinctively fill it by either asking another question or just moving on with no self-awareness. So the 8-second rule is ask, count to yourself. Comfortable eyesight. There's times I've gotten to 1,030. The longer the wait, the better the answer. I love this quote by David Osberger. Being heard is so close to being loved, they're almost indistinguishable. Ephesians 3:20 says, to him who's able to do exceedingly abundantly beyond all you ask or think. That has come alive to me this last year, especially the part that I don't even have to think it for God to do it. And there's a flyer right in the front if you got a book with a QR code. And the thing that's happened is it started in Francophone Africa. Leaders sharing, Bob, we're trying to reach leaders in our country. If we have an opportunity to meet with a government leader or business leader, in our first meeting we share Christ with them. If they don't have spiritual interest, it's one and done. We don't have an opportunity to build a relationship. And so they asked, could we get your book in French so that we can offer leading with questions? And they said, Bob, let's be very clear. We're not leaving evangelism to do leadership development. But we see how leading with questions could be used to open the door in order to share the gospel. And so that has led to facilitator training. I'll let you, if you are trying to reach leaders and this might be a tool to help you, then click on that QR code and get more information. If you didn't get a book, text me FAC and I'll send it to you. If you're not already a subscriber to leadingwithquestions.com, I invite you to join leaders from over 200 nations committed to increasing their leadership effectiveness. Just go to Leading with Questions, cursor down, find a place to enter your email, click subscribe, and you'll be subscribed. It's free. Would you do me a real favor? Sometime today, hand your phone to a friend, say, take a picture of me, and then send it to me. I will be so grateful and would appreciate that. Then, I just want you to know there are 6 free ebooks, free. You go to leadingwithquestions.com/books/ and you will find them. They're available in multiple languages. You minister in other countries, you may find that language there. Next question, have you ever given a book to a friend? Yeah, who did they thank? Did they thank the author, figure out the name of the author and address and send them a thank you? No, they thanked you, didn't they? Well, here's an opportunity, a gift that you can give to everyone in the shadow of your influence. A gift for ministry partners. And that is, I can send you an email that you can copy, paste, and send to everyone in the shadow of your influence to offer them the opportunity to download one or more of the books. Or you could just pick one and share that. And again, if you'll just text your email address, you don't even have to say anything. I'll know if it's an email address to then later next week send you the email that you can copy, paste, and send. And what excites me most is that they'll be thanking you. There's a final exam. Did you know you'd be in here for a final exam? There's a final exam. If you'd pull out your phones again, there's only one question. What is your biggest takeaway from our time that you're going to implement as a result of the 45 minutes you've spent here? And I'd be grateful if you each answer the final exam. You won't get a passing grade if you don't. Butch says, wait for the answer. Cheryl said the 8-second rule for listening. Mark said, ask the 3 to 4 life-changing event question. Dave said, the 3 to 4 questions. Kinsley asked, what else? Dig for the gold that's there. Love that. Well, keep these coming. Again, I'm so grateful. One more quote. Leadership is not as much about knowing the right answers as it is about asking the right questions. Thank you. Have a good afternoon.